Hey, what's up guys, it's Oakley, and we're going to be talking about Age of Charlemagne, the unit roster for all the factions. So there's a fair amount of them. We're going to go ahead and cover this. If you don't know, Age of Charlemagne is going to be the DLC that comes with Total War Attila that you can get now. It is not standalone, so you do need the base game, but basically what it does is it sets forward the timeline into the early Middle Ages, focused around the, Age of Charlemagne, obviously. And with this transition in time periods, we're pushing it closer to the medieval era, and yes, you're going to see a lot more heavily armed units. That is going to be the predominance, especially for these Frankish and Charlemagne type units. Many of these heavily armed guys with skilled Lorca Squamata, not segmentada, but Squamata, like the scale armor, you're going to be seeing a lot of that. Just much more robust soldiers. I love the details that they put in all these units. The variety in this is definitely pretty solid. They made each faction different in terms of its coloration and armor. Here, for example, we can see the Berserkers, and I think they did a good job of differentiation. We don't see as many of the copy and paste Germanic warriors as we saw previously, so that's, I think, going to be a big plus for this. And just tell you what we're going to go over soon here is some of the different special units that the different armies have. So for example, here is going to be some great axes, units with high attack but low armor, and they did a good job of fleshing out the different factions this time around, making it different, especially the colors here, very, very vibrant. I believe we're looking at the Avars right now. So yes, differentiation is a plus, and it's one of the big things that Attila definitely needed. They've also done a reworking of the unit stats, so you're going to be seeing a modification of the health system, as well as just across the board reworking of how the characteristics and unit stats work for these new units. Now, it's not going to be applied post back to Total War Attila Vanilla, but what I have heard is for these new units here for Age of Charlemagne, which can only be pitted against each other, it's going to play rather differently. And I tried that out, and it definitely did. Infantry have more staying power. Cavalry is better used for hammer and anvil. Against heavily armed infantry, it doesn't do that much. Anyways, these are going to be the 4 available guys that you can bring into custom battles. Let's go over these. The Avars are going to have the Avar Guard, and then some various amounts of spears. Each faction is going to have some basic spear units. So these guys, not super impressive. The tribesmen, basically meant to fill out your army. Avar noble swordsmen, some bow infantry. So yeah, very skimpy in terms of the infantry, but obviously they're going to make up for it in terms of some of the cavalry. Overall, not too many units for the Avars, so I thought that was kind of interesting. You'll notice that each faction doesn't have a huge amount of units, but what the units they do have do tend to be kind of more specific to that faction, so it's not just filled to the brim with copy and paste units, which is good. The Emirate of Cordoba is actually a really cool faction. This is going to be the Umayyad, or one of the offshoots of the Umayyad Caliphate in Spain, so they have some access to Berbers and Iberian troops. The guardsmen right here are very good infantry. Spears, definitely very costly. The infantry actually here, the Andalusian Infantry and the Andalusian Warriors are pretty solid. You'll notice if you take a look on the right, the swordsmen here don't have a high charge bonus, and that's one of the big changes I noticed when I was playing this, is you'll notice that they definitely played around with the stats, and it's not going to be wiping out units in initial charges. The units are a lot more about staying power, and hopefully that'll mean a lot more for the skirmishers who can then play into the late game. The Emirate of Cordoba has a lot of these cavalry units, some Berber light cav horsemen, and increasingly gets better and better. We're still in medium cavalry, Andalusian cavalry, and then finally we have one tier 3 heavy melee cav, the armored cavalry here, and that's kind of where it tops out. So you'll notice we're not seeing a huge amount of overpowered cavalry that will run you down. There's no shock cav right there, it's all melee cav, so I think that'll definitely help change up how units play. Now the Kingdom of Surrey, I believe that's what it is, yeah. So they have different spear infantry units, tribesmen, and ambushers there. Looks like they have some javelins. So again, showing how each faction is a little bit different. These guys have more melee infantry, armored swordsmen, and again, take a look at the stats on the right. High melee defense, high armor, high health, but very low attack up front. These guys seem to have more skirmishers, so I am interested to see if the skirmishers will be a little bit more useful in this game. Then some of the cavalry are going to go up, and again, melee cavalry, but no royal shock cav or anything like that, which is cool. And now we see some skirmisher cav, so hopefully, I think they've toned everything down in terms of the killing power, so that's good to see. Now the Kingdom of Charlemagne is going to be super interesting. These guys are definitely my favorite, very heavily armored in this case. They have a lot of these spear infantry which go all the way up. Some of the Frankish spearmen here that we showed earlier in the video, armored spearmen. Again, just the theme of this is holding power, holding power, holding power. The palace guards, I played a little bit with them, and they're tanky as all hell. Very good. These swordsmen, just high armor as well. It seems like you're going to have a lot more of the infantry meat grinders. With limited pool to hopefully allow them to be differentiated instead of having just incremental changes in the stats. You'll notice that the Palace Guard here actually has more charge than the elite heavy infantry. So I thought that was interesting how they were kind of swapping around the roles right there. Bowmen, something you'll notice actually is that you don't have any crossbowmen. You don't have any super long range Germanic bows, stuff that was plaguing Attila, where there was no reason to bring any other unit than the Ballistari, the crossbowmen, and these super long range Gothic archers. It seems like they very much tamed things down in that sense. So I'm very excited to see this. Scala Knights here, very heavy, and then still no shock cav, so we're going to have to wait to see a shock cavalry unit until later. Kingdom of Mercia, royal companions here. Definitely super strong. Again, a nice mix of spear infantry, just 3 or 4 in every case, very basic guys. They do have pretty fair amount of stats, but again, charge bonus is low. Melee infantry, still pretty low charge, but good staying power. Royal things, they're kind of interesting. And then here you see when you start to get into the Axman, this is where you start to kick it up a notch with the charge bonus, and this is where the unit differentiation is going to come in handy, and choosing between factions who can deliver a nice aggressive punch and who can't. And once again, the melee cavalry has been diminished. You have a choice between very cheap 400 talent units and then the 1,000 talent ones. Over here, we start to look at the basically the Kingdom of the Danes, I believe, with these Huscarls, which have crazy charge bonus. So like I was saying, some of these units, look at 95. Some of these factions are definitely going to excel at infantry charges and trying to break enemy formations just from the get-go. The Levy Freemen make their way back, and again, they're not copy and pasted across all factions, so good to see that. Sword Herdmen coming back, and yeah, all these units definitely having high charge bonus, so once again, differentiating themselves from other factions. A lot of axe infantry, also meant to be armor piercing. You can see that's some of their stats right there. So as we saw, a lot of other units are very tanky, so you'll chop through them. So these guys have high charge bonus, but very low melee defense and armor, so that's kind of what you're trading. And it'll be a bit of a balancing act in that regard. They have some bow infantry, not too much skirmishers, and you'll notice no cavalry. So that was super interesting, I thought. So yeah, the exclusion of the cavalry for this faction, making them, forcing them to break the enemy with heavy hitting infantry, definitely giving them a distinct flavor. Let's go Kingdom of the Lombards. They do have cavalry, so seeing this come back. Just one selection of general. I was hoping to see some more, like a differentiation between having them on foot or mounted. Doesn't seem to be the case. Some heavy infantry again, lots of melee infantry. This time dealing a bit more with clubs. Swordsmen intermixed with clubs, who don't necessarily have good armor piercing damage, so I'd be interested to see how those guys fare in a battle. They do have some axe infantry, keeping with kind of the northern and northeastern European forces, having a lot of axe units. Good variety or medium variety of skirmishers. Here's some melee cavalry, which seem to be okay, relatively pricey. And then finally, we see the first shock cavalry unit, these Lombard Lancers, 105 charge bonus, but very low melee defense and armor. So there you go. As opposed to before, we had so much shock cav. Now you only have one of them basically that we've seen so far. Speed for these guys is 90. It's quicker than the light cav. And yeah, these Night Raiders have 100 speed, so they should be quicker than anything. We'll see how that fails. Or fails, Freudian slip there. How that fares. Anyways, Westphalia. Again, take a look at the color differentiation between these units, definitely making them stand out. In terms of the units, yeah, they kind of have the same generic roster of some spearmen, heavily armored infantry, some axemen with some bows thrown in, which you can see at the bottom. I'm not super sure how differentiated these basic swordsmen are going to be from other units, but I think it's the combination of forces that's going to be interesting. So for example, these guys have a bit more access to these different javelin men type unit. They have some melee cav and some skirmisher cav, which will be pretty important. Hearth Cavalry there with pretty good stats on them. Scout Cav, very quick, but very weak in and of themselves. But maybe that's good for harassing. And then finally, these guys have the Warhounds thrown into them. Again, saving these special, unique units to just being one faction or another. And again, I wanted to point out for these archers, we've only ever really seen basic archer units here. I don't see any stats saying that they have extreme range or very long range. So it seems like the archers very much tamed down in that sense. So yeah, that's kind of it. Those are going to be the the 8 main factions. But yeah, that is my overview for now. I think it's very good things that they've done, and I think it's pretty well rounded so far. Good unit variety, not so much copy and paste. So yeah, we'll have to wait to see more of this. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed. I will see you in the next one. Thanks so much for watching, and yeah, peace out.